The sound of Marcus slamming my bedroom door still echoed in my ears as I sat on the edge of my bed, trembling with rage and disbelief. "You got 2 weeks, Keisha. 2 weeks to find somewhere else to live," he'd spat, his words cutting through me like broken glass. I stared at the eviction notice he'd thrown on my dresser, except it wasn't really an eviction notice. It was just a handwritten note on notebook paper: "Get out." My 26-year-old brother, acting like he owned the world, had just kicked his own sister out of what he called his apartment. The irony was suffocating. If only he knew the truth. For 3 years, I'd been the one secretly covering his $1,847 monthly rent. Every month, like clockwork, I'd transfer money to his account with a fake explanation: birthday money from grandma, tax refund, overtime pay. Marcus never questioned it. Why would he? In his mind, he was just naturally lucky with money. My phone buzzed. A text from my coworker Jasmine: "Girl, you look stressed. Everything okay?" Everything was definitely not okay. I'd been living a lie for 3 years, protecting my brother's pride while he treated me like garbage. The same brother who'd promised Mom on her deathbed that he'd always take care of me. The same brother who now stood in the living room, laughing with his girlfriend Brittany about finally getting his freeloading sister out of his space. My hands shook as I opened my banking app. Account balance, $847. His rent was due in 6 days. This time, I had a choice to make. 3 years ago, Marcus had been a different person. Fresh out of college, drowning in student debt, working at a call center making barely enough to survive. I remember the night he came home crying, actually crying, because he'd gotten his first eviction notice. "Keisha, I don't know what I'm gonna do," he'd sobbed, sitting at our tiny kitchen table. "I can't go back to living with cousins, sleeping on couches. I can't." That's when I made the decision that would haunt me. I'd just gotten my promotion to senior accountant, and my salary had jumped to $78,000. Marcus didn't know about the raise. Nobody did. "Don't worry," I told him, rubbing his shoulder. "Something will work out." The next day, I called his landlord, Mr. Patterson, and explained the situation. "I'll cover his rent," I said. "But he can't know it's coming from me. His pride won't let him accept it." Mr. Patterson, a kind older man who'd known our family for years, agreed to the arrangement. "I'll tell him he qualified for some rental assistance program," he'd suggested. That lie snowballed. Every month for 3 years, I'd been living paycheck to paycheck, sacrificing my own dreams, the house I wanted to buy, the vacation to Jamaica I'd been saving for, the car that didn't break down every other week, all to keep Marcus afloat. And how did he repay me? By becoming arrogant, entitled, and cruel. The grateful brother disappeared, replaced by someone who acted like he was doing me a favor by letting me live there. The worst part? I'd started believing I deserved his treatment. The change in Marcus started about 8 months ago when Brittany moved in. She was 24, Instagram pretty, and had opinions about everything, especially me. "Why does your sister still live here?" I'd overheard her asking Marcus one night. "She's almost 30. It's weird." "I know, baby," Marcus had replied. "I've been too nice. She's been taking advantage of my generosity." Generosity. The word had made me physically sick. Brittany had a way of poisoning every interaction. She'd use my shampoo, eat my food, and then complain that I was territorial about my belongings. She'd blast music at midnight when I had work the next morning, then act like I was being unreasonable when I asked her to turn it down. "This is Marcus's apartment," she'd remind me constantly. "Maybe you should be more grateful." The final straw came last week during my birthday dinner. I'd cooked for everyone, jerk chicken, rice and peas, plantains, the works. Hours of preparation for a family meal. Brittany took one bite and wrinkled her nose. "This is too spicy," she announced. Marcus, can you order pizza instead? My brother, my own flesh and blood, had nodded. Yeah, this is pretty intense, Keisha. Brittany's stomach is sensitive. I'd stood there, watching them order Domino's while my homemade meal sat untouched, feeling like a stranger in my own home. That's when I realized that this wasn't my home anymore. Maybe it never had been. But here's what they didn't know: I had records. Every bank transfer, every conversation with Mr. Patterson, every receipt. 3 years of evidence that would shatter Marcus's entire reality. I'm not leaving, I announced, walking into the living room where Marcus and Brittany were curled up on the couch watching Netflix, the Netflix account I paid for. Marcus paused the show, his face darkening. Excuse me. You heard me. I'm not going anywhere. Brittany sat up, her perfectly straightened hair swishing. Girl, he gave you 2 weeks. That's more than generous. Generous? I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. You want to talk about generous? Let's talk about generous. Marcus stood up, trying to intimidate me with his height. Keisha, don't make this harder than it needs to be. I've been carrying you for too long. It's time to grow up. Carrying me? My voice was getting louder, but I didn't care. Marcus, when's the last time you paid rent? I pay rent every month. What kind of question is that? No, I said slowly. When's the last time your money paid the rent? Confusion flashed across his face. What are you talking about? That's when I pulled out my phone and showed him my banking app. 3 years of transfers, all labeled with dates and amounts. His face went pale as he scrolled through them. This is fake, Brittany interjected. She's trying to manipulate you, baby. But Marcus had gone silent, still staring at my phone. I could see the math working in his head, the pieces falling into place. Every month for 3 years, I continued. Every single month, I've transferred money to your account so you could pay rent. You thought you were lucky. You thought money just appeared. It was me, Marcus. It was always me. Marcus collapsed back onto the couch, his face in his hands. No. No, this can't be right. Call Mr. Patterson if you don't believe me, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Ask him who's been paying the rent. Brittany grabbed Marcus's arm. Baby, she's lying. This is some kind of scam. But Marcus was already dialing. I watched as he had the conversation that would change everything. Mr. Patterson. It's Marcus Williams in 4B. I need to ask you something about my rent payments. His voice trailed off as he listened. Then, what do you mean rental assistance? I never applied for any program. The silence stretched on as Mr. Patterson explained the arrangement. I could hear the older man's voice through the phone, gentle but clear. Marcus hung up and looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time in years. He said you've been paying my rent since I got that first eviction notice. He said you made him promise not to tell me. Now ask him who's been paying the utilities, I said quietly. Marcus's hands shook as he made the second call. Then the third, to the internet company. The fourth, to the insurance company for the renter's insurance he thought he was managing so well. Every call confirmed the same thing: Keisha Williams was the financial backbone of apartment 4B. But why? Marcus whispered. Why would you do this? Because you're my brother, I said, my voice breaking slightly. Because Mom made me promise to take care of you. Because I loved you, and I wanted to protect your pride. Brittany stood up abruptly. This is crazy. Marcus, she's been controlling you, manipulating your finances without your knowledge. That's not love, that's... Shut up. Marcus suddenly exploded, turning on her. Just shut up, Brittany. The room went dead silent. You made me kick out my sister, Marcus said to Brittany, his voice shaking with a mixture of rage and realization. My sister who's been keeping a roof over my head for 3 years. Brittany's perfectly contoured face twisted with anger. I didn't make you do anything. You complained about her all the time. Because you were always in my ear. Marcus stood up, pacing now. Every day, it was something. Why does Keisha get the bigger room? Why does Keisha act like she owns the place? When is Keisha moving out? I watched this unfold, feeling a mix of vindication and sadness. This was my brother finally seeing clearly, but it had taken nearly losing me for him to open his eyes. She does act like she owns the place. Brittany shot back. Walking around here like she's better than everybody. She pays the rent. Marcus screamed. She literally owns this place more than I do. The fight escalated quickly. Brittany started throwing accusations, claiming I was manipulative and controlling. Marcus defended me with a ferocity I hadn't seen since we were kids, and he'd fought Tommy Rodriguez for pulling my braids. Get out, Marcus finally said to Brittany. What? I said get out. Pack your stuff and leave. Now. Brittany looked between us, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. You're choosing her over me. Your own girlfriend. I'm choosing my family over the person who almost made me lose my family. After Brittany stormed out, slamming the door so hard our neighbor knocked to check if everything was okay, Marcus and I sat in heavy silence. Keisha, he finally said, his voice small and broken. I'm so sorry. But sorry wasn't going to be enough. Not this time. Sorry doesn't give me back 3 years of my life, I said, my voice steady but cold. Sorry doesn't give me back the $66,492 I spent keeping you afloat. Marcus's eyes widened. $66,000. Rent, utilities, internet, insurance. Yes, Marcus. $66,492. I'd calculated it that morning while he was in the shower, adding up every transfer, every payment. He buried his face in his hands. Oh my God. Keisha, I had no idea. That's the problem. You never asked. You just accepted that money appeared in your account every month like magic. I sat across from him, maintaining distance. Do you know what I gave up for you? Marcus shook his head, unable to meet my eyes. I was supposed to buy a house last year. Had my down payment saved and everything. But every month, I chose your rent over my future. I drove my car into the ground because I couldn't afford repairs and your expenses. I haven't been on vacation in 3 years because every spare dollar went to keeping you comfortable. My voice was getting stronger with every word. 3 years of suppressed resentment was finally flowing out. And you know what the worst part is? I didn't mind the sacrifice. I did it because I love you. But you turned into someone who treated me like garbage. You let your girlfriend disrespect me in my own home, the home I was paying for. Marcus looked up, tears in his eyes. I can pay you back. I'll get a second job, I'll. With what money, Marcus? You couldn't even afford rent without me. The harsh truth hung between us. Marcus made $42,000 a year at his current job. Even if he gave me every penny, it would take him more than a year and a half to pay me back, and that's assuming he had no other expenses. I'll figure it out, he insisted. No, I said firmly. You'll figure out how to live without me subsidizing your life. That night, I called my girl Jasmine and told her everything. She listened in stunned silence as I explained the situation. Girl, you are a saint, she said when I finished. But also, you're crazy. How did you let this go on for 3 years? I kept thinking he'd get better financially. I kept thinking he'd appreciate what I was doing once he figured it out. And instead, he got worse. Keisha, you know what this is. This is financial abuse. He's been abusing your kindness and your money." Her words hit me hard because they were true. I'd been so focused on protecting Marcus that I'd let him destroy my own financial stability and self-worth. "So what are you going to do?" Jasmine asked. "I'm moving out. But first, I'm going to let him experience reality." The plan was simple but devastating. I would stop all payments immediately. No more rent money, no more utilities, no more internet. Marcus would have exactly 1 month to figure out how to cover $2,200 in monthly expenses with his take-home pay of about $2,800. That only leaves him $600 for food, gas, and everything else, I calculated out loud. "Good," Jasmine said fiercely. "Let him struggle like you've been struggling. Let him understand what sacrifice actually means." I spent the weekend apartment hunting and found a beautiful 1-bedroom place across town. Hardwood floors, updated kitchen, in-unit washer and dryer, all the things I'd dreamed of having. The rent was $1,400, which I could easily afford on my salary once I stopped supporting Marcus. The deposit and first month's rent would take most of my savings, but it felt like freedom. For the first time in 3 years, I was spending money on my own life. Marcus didn't believe I was serious until the moving truck arrived. He stood in the doorway of his bedroom, watching the movers pack up my furniture, which turned out to be most of the furniture in the apartment. "The couch is yours," I told him as the movers struggled to navigate my sectional around the corner. "Keisha, wait. We can work this out." But I was done working things out. I was done being the solution to his problems. "The TV is mine too," I said, pointing to the 65-inch Samsung in the living room. "I have the receipt if you want to see it." Marcus watched helplessly as the movers disconnected and wrapped up the television, leaving behind a blank wall and a dusty outline where it used to hang. "What about the kitchen stuff?" "Also mine. Pots, pans, dishes, the air fryer, the instant pot, the coffee maker, all of it went into boxes." I'd been the one setting up house while Marcus contributed nothing but complaints. By noon, his apartment looked like an empty shell. No furniture except his bedroom set and a folding chair. No appliances except the refrigerator that came with the unit. No decorations, no comfort items, nothing that made the space feel like home. "This isn't fair," he said as I loaded the last of my clothes into my car. "Fair?" I laughed bitterly. "Marcus, nothing about the last 3 years has been fair. But you're about to learn what fair actually looks like." I handed him an envelope. "Your first month flying solo. Rent is due on the 15th, utilities usually run about $200. Internet is $89. Insurance is $45. Good luck." His hands shook as he opened the envelope and saw the bills I'd printed out, every expense he'd never had to think about because I'd been handling them. "I can't afford all this," he whispered. "I know," I said, getting into my car. "That's something you should have thought about before you kicked me out." 2 weeks later, Marcus called me in a panic. "Keisha, the power got cut off." I was in my new apartment, eating dinner on my own couch, watching my own TV. The freedom was intoxicating. "Did you pay the electric bill?" I forgot it was due." "You forgot." I repeated his words slowly. "The same way you forgot to pay rent last month." Marcus had indeed forgotten to pay rent. Without my automatic transfer, he'd simply assumed money would appear like it always had. Mr. Patterson had called me directly, not Marcus, to ask if there was a problem with the payment. "I told him to talk to you," I'd said. "It's your apartment now, remember?" "Keisha, please. I'm trying to get caught up, but I'm behind on everything. The internet got disconnected yesterday. I can't even work from home anymore." I felt a flicker of sympathy, but I pushed it down. "What do you want from me, Marcus? Just help me this one time." "I'll pay you back," I swear. With what money? And why should I believe you'll pay me back when you didn't even know you owed me $66,000? The silence stretched between us. Finally, Marcus spoke, his voice small and defeated. Because you're my sister. I was your sister 3 weeks ago when you kicked me out. That night, I called Mr. Patterson to check on the situation. The kind landlord sounded tired. I hate to do this, he said, but I'm going to have to start eviction proceedings. He's a full month behind on rent, and when I tried to work out a payment plan, he got angry and blamed me for not warning him about the bills. I'm sorry you're dealing with this, I said, and I meant it. Mr. Patterson had been nothing but kind to our family. That boy has no idea how good he had it, Mr. Patterson said sadly. Marcus showed up at my new apartment on a Tuesday night, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes were red, and he'd clearly lost weight. How did you find my address? I asked through the door chain. Jasmine told me. Please, Keisha. I need to talk to you. Against my better judgment, I let him in. He stood in my living room, looking around at the space I'd created for myself, warm, comfortable, and peaceful. This is nice, he said quietly. It's what I could afford once I stopped paying your bills. Marcus flinched but didn't argue. I got evicted yesterday. I'd been expecting this, but it still hit me in the chest. Where are you staying? Cousin Ray's couch. He sat heavily in my armchair. Keisha, I messed up. I messed up bad. Yes, you did. I need to know how to fix this. I need to know how you did it, how you managed all those bills and still had money for food and everything else. I stared at my brother, really looked at him. For 3 years, I'd been enabling his irresponsibility, and now he was finally facing the consequences of his choices. I'll show you, I said, walking to my kitchen and returning with a notebook. But you're not going to like it. I showed him my budget from the past 3 years. Every dollar accounted for, every expense planned. I showed him how I'd eaten ramen noodles for lunch every day to save money for his rent. How I'd shopped at thrift stores while he wore new clothes. How I'd driven my car until it literally died in a parking lot because I couldn't afford repairs. You lived like this for 3 years. For me, he whispered. And you never noticed. You never asked why I never had money for anything fun, why I never bought new clothes, why I worked overtime constantly. You just took and took and took. Marcus started crying then, deep, body-shaking sobs that reminded me of the scared kid he used to be. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry, Keisha. I don't know how to be an adult without you. And there it was. The truth we'd both been avoiding for years. You're 26 years old, Marcus, I said gently but firmly. It's time to learn. Over the next hour, I walked him through everything. How to set up a budget. How to prioritize bills. How to find cheaper alternatives for food and entertainment. How to negotiate with creditors when money was tight. Write this down, I told him, and he did, filling page after page with information he should have learned years ago. Can I stay here until I get back on my feet? He asked when we finished. No. Marcus looked hurt. Why not? I'll pay rent this time, I swear. Because you need to learn that actions have consequences. And because I need to learn that I can't keep saving you from those consequences. I walked to my kitchen and came back with an envelope. This is what I can do. Marcus opened it to find $2,000 in cash. That's enough for first month's rent and deposit on a small apartment. But that's it. No more bailouts, no more emergency money, no more anything. You're on your own. But what if I can't make it? Then you'll figure it out. The same way millions of people figure it out every day. I sat across from him. Marcus, I love you. But I realize now that helping you the way I did wasn't actually helping. It was hurting both of us. He nodded slowly. I don't know if I can do this. You can. You just never had to before. That night, after Marcus left, I called Jasmine to tell her about our conversation. I'm proud of you, she said. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't. But it felt right. For the first time in 3 years, it felt right. I looked around my apartment, my space, my rules, my peace, and smiled. Tomorrow, Marcus would start learning how to be an adult. And I would start learning how to live for myself again. Marcus called me this morning with news that made my heart swell with pride. I got promoted, he said, his voice bright with excitement. Assistant manager. It comes with a $8,000 raise. That's amazing, Marcus. I'm so proud of you. I wanted to tell you first because none of this would have happened if you hadn't cut me off. In the 6 months since our confrontation, Marcus had transformed. He'd found a small studio apartment he could afford. He'd learned to cook, to budget, to take care of himself. He'd even started taking night classes to improve his qualifications for better jobs. I hated you for a while, he admitted. Those first few weeks sleeping on Ray's couch, I was so angry. I know. I expected that. But then I realized something. You didn't abandon me. You just stopped enabling me. There's a difference. We met for lunch that afternoon, his treat, he insisted. He looked healthy, confident, like the brother I remembered from before everything went wrong. I've been saving money to pay you back, he said, sliding an envelope across the table. It's not much yet, but it's a start. I opened it to find $500 in cash and a handwritten IOU for the remaining balance. Marcus, you don't have to. Yes, I do. What you did for me wasn't a gift. It was a loan, and I'm going to pay back every penny. As we talked, I realized something profound had happened. My brother had finally grown up. And by refusing to enable his irresponsibility, I'd grown up too. I'm seeing someone, I mentioned casually. Marcus's eyes lit up. Really? Tell me about him. His name is David. He's an engineer. And Marcus? He has his own apartment, his own car, and his own savings account. We both laughed, understanding the significance of that statement. I'm happy for you, sis. You deserve someone who adds to your life instead of taking from it. Walking back to my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace. My relationship with Marcus would never be the same as it was before, but it was better. It was honest. It was built on mutual respect instead of codependency. And for the first time since Mom died, I felt like I'd truly honored her request to take care of my brother, by teaching him to take care of himself.